Hi everyone. So I'm researching and developing a supported residency for artists who feel unable to participate in existing programmes. And this is being developed over the next year and is supported by public funding, Arts Council England, and project partners at Islington Mill in Salford and the University of Salford. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the residencies that I've taken part in. And this is the Chongqing programme, which is in China, and that's run by the CFCCA, so the Centre for Chinese Contemporary Art, which is in Manchester, and 501 Art Space, which is in Chongqing. And the programme offers kind of like a studio space and the support of the Chongqing artist community. And I went there for a 4-week period. And I guess at that time I was really interested in performance artists. So there's a rich history of performance artists in China, making work internationally and domestically. And the actual work that I realised when I was there was a street intervention, an improvised stage performance, and then I had a kind of end of show happening. So during my time in China there was a lot of events happening. So there was the International Arts Festival in Chongqing, which weirdly enough didn't have any international artists in. And there was also Expo was being really heavily promoted in Shanghai. And it was also the Chinese New Year, so there was all these events going on, so that kind of really influenced my work at that time, sort of creating these mini events. And, you know, when I kind of got this opportunity to go, I was incredibly excited, but also very anxious as well of what to expect. But I just kind of kept thinking the benefits would just outweigh my fear of going, which it did, and it was a really incredible time when I went there. And sometimes it was a bit lonely, you know, going on your own to another country, but I was really well looked after by the curator, and I kind of felt like he really treated me like a sort of family member, which was really lovely. So kind of being in China, just being there, being a foreigner, being unfamiliar, just moving around and talking would attract a lot of attention. And I guess I kind of have used that in my work. So I've kind of developed a bit more of a sort of physical presence in my work, and more of a sort of visual language in the way that I performed. So basically at the end of this event happening that I had at the end of my residency, I kind of had a lot of interaction with the audience. So I had lots of balloons on me that people could pop. There was lots of bunting that people would cut. We all ate cake together as well. So these kind of very simple but universal actions I kind of used a lot more in my work. So that kind of fed into a lot more performances over another year period. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about The Unknown Road, which was a 10-day self-made residency in Northern Karelia in Finland. And I was invited to Helsinki from an artist, curator and my friend, Anna Puhaka. And she commissioned me to perform this mini event called the Evente, performed by Miss Evente. And she kind of said, why don't you come out a bit earlier and experience a different side of Finnish culture, which is the great outdoors. So basically I went out there 2 weeks before and basically did this residency, self-made, with me and Anna for 10 days, and we basically stayed in a summer house. So generally in Finnish culture, they tend to have like a second home or a second property, which is called the summer house. So this is quite normal. And as I mentioned, that's where I stayed. So during this time, I made this intervention So I basically marked this spot at a crossroads in the road where I got lost going to the shops. And I kind of wanted to turn myself very quickly into a visual landmark, just with the materials that I had. As you can see, the bunting theme has continued in my work. So the sign that I'm holding up says Swara Karua, which means follow the bear. And to be honest, I was scared of bears when I was there, because my friend Anna had said that she'd seen a bear at the summer house. So I think at the back of my mind, I just kept thinking, I'm going to see a bear, so maybe if I turn myself into a bear, you know, that might help. So kind of making this piece, I kind of knew it would be performed to camera, so it was going to be a photograph, so it actually ended up being an A2 digital print, which I've exhibited. And, you know, for me, that was quite a new thing to do, because generally I just perform live. And then I also create this postcard, which is like a limited edition postcard of the various places that I've performed Miss Evente. And I guess after this residency, I just started to think a little bit more about how I could present my work more commercially. So, you know, it was a really amazing experience, and I really got to kind of first-hand experience the Finnish way of life, so kind of working in the city in Helsinki and then retreating to the forest. So I just wanted to share some residency databases with people who may not have come across this before. So there's a wooloo.org, which is the first kind of online kind of arts opportunities and residencies database, and I just really like the layout and the design of it. It's also, you can sort of build your own online profile. So when I was at university quite a few years ago, that was kind of like the first thing that I came across, so I'd really recommend having a look at that. There's also artquest.org.uk, which is great for national residencies. And there's also transartist.org, which is for Dutch residencies. And then there is also ResArtist, which is for international programmes. With all of these, some are paid, some are unpaid, so you just really need to sort of sift through those. So I guess a question might be, why a residency in Tampere in Finland? And what I discovered was this link between Tampere and Manchester. Tampere is known, it's kind of got a nickname which is called the Mansi, and this makes reference to the rapid growth of the cotton industry during the Industrial Revolution in Tampere. So this historical connection, it kind of gave me a starting point, but then the more I started to research the Tampere cultural scene, I came across the theatre festival that was happening out there. And the theatre festival also has a lot of sort of fringe performance events. So I actually applied for this, and I got accepted to perform as an official researcher at the Off Festival. So obviously I knew I was then going to Finland, I was going to be performing out there, so I needed to stay somewhere, so I started to research arts residencies. And I guess that's when I started to realise that it became a bit of a challenge, because at that time I had a 6-month-old baby, and I didn't really think it would be an issue, but it seemed to be quite challenging to find somewhere that would accept me and my family. So anyway, then I came across this residency called the Takahuti Research Residency. And yeah, basically it's at the Takahuti Art Centre. It's placed in a park, and it's just like a 20-minute drive to the city centre. The building was actually an old people's home, but it's been transformed into art studio spaces. So the Art Centre offers living and residency facilities for artists. So for me, the living space combined with the studio really suited me, because I could work quite late into the night, but then I knew that my husband and my son were kind of in the next room, so that worked really well for me. And just the environment really appealed to me, kind of being in a park. I live in Manchester city centre, so obviously very busy. So it's just a nice contrast to where I normally live. The application process for this was very simple, and the cost of sort of the living and the studio space is incredibly cheap because it's supported by kind of like the local government. Although I did try to apply to get some funding when I went in 2014, but I didn't get it. So that could have been a barrier to go in, but what I did was I sent an email around to all my friends and contacts, and I ended up raising like half the cost towards it. So the PANDA, the Performing Arts Network, I had a little bit of money from a review bursary from AN, and my family really kind of rallied round. So, it's amazing what you can do just by sending an email, I guess. So I ended up going for 2 weeks in August 2014, and it just felt good to be performing and be doing the residency. It just felt like, it would enable me to just have a really good experience of the art scene out there. So the International Theatre Festival, which there's a poster here for it, and the fringe events happen in Tampere for over a 5-day period. And as I said before, I performed as an official researcher. And this involved posing quite a big question, which was how to twin the cities together of Tampere and Manchester. Now, admittedly, I know it was quite an ambitious question, but I kind of just wanted to go there with something quite big and quite open, because at that time I just wanted to think about a bigger project rather than the smaller pieces that I'd been making. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about just a couple of one of the standout pieces that I really loved, which was Estonian Theatre number 99, which is this middle image at the top here. And it was actually a film screening, and this theatre group actually appeared to have set up a new political party, and they had a massive conference. There was like 7,000 people attended it. But it was a theatre group, so it was just really amazing, a documentary which I'd really advise you to try and have a look at. And then Les Dudes, two street performers, and the guy on the right isn't quite as good as the guy on the left, and this is like this recurring theme throughout their performance. And I just loved how it just really engaged with children. And also the whole event, so the main programme and the fringe events were equally promoted. So there was banners everywhere, posters, there was a magazine advertising the event. It just felt incredibly well advertised. So during my stay, I went and visited the Sarah Hildeman Museum, which is a fantastic museum. And it's actually placed in a fun fair park. So the image on the right is where it's placed, which I just think, what an amazing idea and way of engaging children or tricking them into going to the museum. And while I was at the museum, I watched a video about the history, and I noticed that one of the artists who was at the studio where I was staying, at the residence where I was staying, which is, I have to read his name correctly, which is... Sorry, I've got to get his name right, it's going to really annoy me otherwise. Timo Vierakowski. That's why I couldn't remember it. So he was quite a big deal in the Finnish modern art scene, and I was amazed to find that his studio was next to mine. So I kind of visited his space, and I really enjoyed these kind of drawings that he had been working on, which are, they're kind of like wooden structures for boats, to launch boats, and he was kind of documenting these through some drawings. And then I really enjoyed these phone cable boxes which were dotted around the city with different artworks on. What did I do as an official researcher? Well, I went onto the streets with my official researcher t-shirt and had the banner, and I kind of used cake, which is always a good way of getting people's attention, colouring in, and some Manchester musical anthems. And I kind of moved around the city, so I'm kind of next to a bridge, I kind of was in a park with the banner, and I also kind of pitched up next to one of the performance tents while I was there. So aesthetically, I guess I was sort of trying to strip my work back, and kind of still continued using uniform as a way of engaging people and kind of entering into a discussion. I also wore a lanyard around my neck, which identified me as sort of part of the festival. And I guess for me it was just a chance to, start a new project, but try and start working in a new way, because generally I've been observed in my performances, whereas this was about opening up a discussion and not knowing the answers. So these were some of the responses on the banner of how to twin the cities of Tampere and Manchester together. My personal favourite being a secret portal in a magic pub. I'm really hoping that might happen. But I guess what was surprising to me was that the general public didn't mention art, they didn't mention the cotton industry, although the idea of sort of cultural exchange, was expressed, but more around food, drink, and sports. So I guess it just got me thinking about how the public engage or don't engage with art or artists. So then at the end of my residency, I did an artist talk. I just think it's always best practice to sort of give something back. But then throughout my talk, I continually changed my t-shirt. So I kind of stripped off and kept changing these t-shirts of all the different roles that I feel that I play. And I guess actually, I'm going to go back to that one. I just wanted to talk a little bit about maybe some of the barriers maybe that I felt. And I guess at the beginning, when I had my son, I didn't think doing an artist residency would be a barrier. But then when I started to apply and research into them, it seemed that it was for others. I don't like things to stop me doing what I want to do, so I just kind of felt that if I kept researching, kept looking, I'd find a way, or I'd find an opportunity. There's no way I could have done that residency without my husband and without my 6-month-old child. Why should I have to do a residency without them? I kind of see it as part of, my family and my art are one. And my husband looked after my son, and I split my studio time and, performing at the festival. But, family time was equally as important. And I think also, because it was a research residency, I didn't feel the pressure that I had to produce lots of things. So I think that just took the pressure off, and I just felt I could just do what I wanted. So I think that maybe helped. Having a family has really inspired me to work in a new way, so thinking maybe longer and deeper on a subject. My performance practice has become more kind of open, and to not worry so much about not knowing the answers. Family life has also influenced new performance work, and recently reflecting on my role as a mother, artist, worker and researcher. So this is a kind of piece that I did recently called Drop Pick Up at Open House, at Federation House, and then most recently at Emergency at Z Arts. So I've kind of got this black wig on, and I'm kind of walking around with this fake Chanel bag with my son's toy bricks, and I'm walking around and kind of emptying the bag out with all the bricks, making quite a lot of noise. But it was kind of interesting how people, children, were engaging with it. I wasn't really quite sure how to take it. Well, to be honest, I couldn't really see people while I was doing it. But watching the videos back, those little interactions with the children and then also with the adults, you know, I kind of really enjoyed, and I'd like to do a bit more with this piece, but you know, I'm still sort of thinking about that. So basically, we are a resident, which is me. You know, it's not lots of people, it is just me. So in September, there will be an opportunity for a Greater Manchester artist to go to Tampere for up to 2 weeks. I'm still developing the artist profile for this, but you know, it will be a supported residency, and it will be advertised at the end of March through the We Are Resident social media feeds. So what I can say is that there will be budget for travel, living costs, materials, and a research fee. And this residency is really for a family or an artist who needs to bring a support person with them. And the artist will have to have taken part in at least one residency. So in October, as part of the We Are Resident project, I'm going to be bringing over Finnish artist Sara Salampa and her 2 children and her partner, and they'll be staying at Islington Mill. And together we're still at the early stages of just planning activity for the family. And at the moment, these are the kind of works that she's developing, which are illustrations of Finnish circus performers. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know Sara and her work. And then as part of this We Are Resident research into artist residencies, I did a 10-minute artist residency at Manchester Art Gallery as a way of trying to gather responses specifically from artist parents and the general public. And again, I think the most surprising thing was how I think anyone potentially can benefit from an artist residency, so not just an artist but also the public. So I just wanted to continue on with one of the activities, which is what the postcard is, which is on your chair. So I just wanted to ask you, what is your personal barrier to taking part in an arts residency? And if you could write that down over the break, which will be happening after this, that would be great, and we can maybe talk about a few of those later. So I think that's it.
Thank you. So, just repeat again what you want people to write on the postcard.
Yeah, so if you could just write down your personal barrier, whatever that may be, to taking part in an arts residency. What is the thing that you think, you know, is holding you back, or something that's in your way that's stopping you? Yeah, so if you just make a note of that, and if I'll just collect them maybe just before we start the second half. Yeah.
Or we could leave it until. Or do you want to have a chance to look through them?
No, I don't mind.
We can leave it till just when the panel starts.
Okay.
So if you want to think a bit more deeply about it, or give them to Nicola. Has anybody got a quick question now, before the coffee break or tea break? Everyone's done extremely well to survive dry this long.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Question regarding. So, talking about barriers when taking a residency abroad, the language. How much of a barrier is the language in dealing with the people abroad, the art organizations there, or anyone you have to come in contact, like Finland or Qatar?
Yeah.
Just generally.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, when I went to China, I just naively just thought I'll just find a way, or so, you know, quite lazy really. I just thought someone will be able to help me, and a lot of the people could speak like a bit of English where I was staying, so that really helped. But you know, there were times when I literally had to be given a note on a bit of paper to hand to someone in a shop because I couldn't communicate what I wanted. So that was a challenge, but there's something about just putting your trust in other people as well, and trusting that they're going to sort of help you, that I really felt in China. But then in Finland, pretty much most people speak English. That's kind of part of their education. They're very multilingual, so they speak Finnish, Swedish, English. So again, I guess I'm lucky there. So it was it was quite easy to talk to people. Although with emails, it seems to take a lot longer to get regular contact going. So I don't know if the written word is harder to translate than speaking. So there might be something in that. Yeah.